Hey guys, Corey with Famous Media. Today we're going to talk about my favorite camera ever released, the Nikon D4. So guys, we got the amazing D4 here. I know this camera's been out for a little over a year. This is the first chance I've had to review one of my D4s, and it is a phenomenal camera. Now, I'm gonna get a few things out of the way first. A lot of people are saying that the D4 has soft video. We're gonna take a look at that. I don't think it's soft. It's not quite as sharp as the D800 per se, or maybe the D7100, but it is much sharper than a lot of the Canon offerings. And one of the great things about this camera is the low light capabilities are beyond anything on the market. There isn't a DSLR on the market today that will produce the low light results that you will get from this camera. So let's go ahead and go over a couple of features. First, ISO range 100 all the way through 12,800, which is phenomenal. And it'll go all the way in high 4 mode, which is 206,000, which is kind of grainy. But anything under 12,800, you're going to be looking at marvelous images with very low noise, if any noise whatsoever. Now, let's go over a little bit of the features of the camera. And as you'll see, you've got your play button, your delete button right here. You've got your flash bracketing and your spot metering on the top of the camera. It's got a cover, which covers up your hot shoe from flash or pocket wizards. This way you don't damage the connectors on that. Of course, a lot of people are going to ask, I've got the Hoodman round eye cup for non-eyewear glasses right there. So if you're not wearing glasses, this is the one for you. I prefer the one for eyeglasses better. It seals a little bit better, but no biggie. You've got, of course, the bottom display here, which I've got my ISO set to. And of course, your white balance, your quality, your ISO. And this little button right here, if you hold that, you can actually talk and leave memos on your files. So if you're doing a lot of corporate shoots or big, huge weddings and you have an editor that's doing all kinds of work, you can tell them what kind of effects you may want on your files. Now, if you go vertically, you've got your AF on, which you can assign in the menu to be the AF lock if you're in aperture priority mode. This right here is your shutter wheel. This is your aperture wheel from shooting in vertical.
Now let's go ahead and take a look at some of the features on the D4. At the bottom here, where the screen is, shows your ISO, the quality you're shooting, and your white balance and your destination. The buttons are below. The microphone button right here will allow you to record voice memos to the files. Also, right above it is the live view button and switch for movie mode and photo mode. If you hold these two buttons, it'll reset all your camera settings and restore it back to factory. Now here is your information button, which will pull up the screen and allow you to adjust different shortcuts, settings, focus points, and allow you to see some of your settings in the dark. Now, if you want to access your CF or XQD card, just move this protection cover and press the button. There's your CF card slot and XQD slot. Press the XQD, it's spring-loaded. It'll allow you to pull the card out. I have the S-Type from Sony, which is 168 megabytes per second. I do recommend this card as it's much faster. Now, this D-pad joystick at the bottom can move your focus points, and you can assign the auto exposure lock like I have to the AF on button just to the right of that, which is used in vertical. The D-pad at the top can control your autofocus points as well. I have my auto exposure lock assigned to that button. I'm currently using the Hoodman round eye cup for people who don't wear eyeglasses. On the left, you'll see the menu button, picture control, zoom in and out, OK, play, and delete. On the top right side of the camera is the power switch to turn the camera on. If you strike the button all the way to the right, you'll see it turns the LCD panel on, and of course all the buttons on the camera will light up. That's your record button, this is your exposure compensation button, and this is your mode button. All you do is hold the button down and turn your rear dial to adjust the settings to your liking. Now here is the hot shoe protection cover, which prevents damage and keeps moisture out. Right here on the left top of the camera, you can see the flash compensation, the bracketing button, and the metering button. Just hold the button down and turn the dial to adjust the settings. Beneath the flap on the side of the camera, you'll see your Ethernet connector and of course your HDMI port. Clean HDMI out, and you can also tether with a Cat 5 or Cat 6 cable to programs like Lightroom. Here is your headphone jack and of course your microphone input for manual audio control. Above that is the USB connection port to plug the D4 into your computer or laptop. And just to the left of that is the WT5 transmitter port, so you can control your D4 from your smartphone or tablet device, such as the iPhone. So let's go ahead and turn the D4 around and show you the front. You've got your PC sync port on the top, and you've got your 10-pin connector on the bottom, which will allow you to remote fire your shutter from something such as a pocket wizard. Now, let's go ahead to the side here and look at the autofocusing motor. The D4 has a built-in motor to drive lenses that don't have autofocusing capabilities, such as the AIS lenses. Here is the battery chamber to remove your battery for charging or to swap them out. The little green slider releases the lock so you can charge your battery. It's pretty easy, just press it back on, it locks in place, and you can go ahead and put the battery back inside the camera, and you just twist it to lock. Very simple.
On the top, you've got your mirror up, your quiet mode, your timer, and of course, your single shot, continuous low, and continuous high. You can set your continuous low from 1 frames all the way up to 9 frames, and your continuous high can be 10 or 11 frames. You will get 11 frames if the camera is locked. That means if you put it in single autofocus point, you hear the beep, and it corrects the focus for you. You continue to softly hold the shutter button, it means your camera's no longer focusing or tracking, you will get 11 frames. If you got it in continuous autofocus mode, you're only gonna get 10 frames instead of 11. So let's go ahead and take a walk around Manhattan. We're gonna take some shots, talk about the features, and experiment and show you guys the image quality of this camera. So we got the D4 with the Nikkor 24-70, which is an amazing lens. I use it almost every day. We're gonna take a little walk around and talk about the features of the D4 and show you what it can do. Now, the D4 can focus in low light, even at an f-stop setting of 8. It's an amazing autofocus system. It's got 51 autofocus points, 15 which are cross type, which is the same as the D7100 and the D800E. Now, the differences here, many people have asked, is there really a difference in the autofocus capabilities since it's the same sensor? Well, the answer, simply put, yes. The D4 still outperforms the D800, D800E, and D7100 for autofocusing abilities. So the D4's autofocus system, simply put, is, yes, much better than the D800E, D800, or D7100, or any other Nikon camera for that matter. It is a flawless focusing system, which I've never had trouble with. It is just amazing to use. You can track any moving subject no matter how fast they are and how fast you want to shoot. This camera will keep up with anything. I specifically use it for wedding photography, portraits, modeling, and in the studio, as well as my D800E, which I'll put a link down there to the D800E review video, as well as the 24-70 review, and of course the D7100, which I just finished a few months back. So let's take a few shots and see how this does. I've got this in aperture priority, and we're going to take a few shots and track some people moving. So I'm tracking the lady in front of me right now, and the image is pack sharp. I'm going to go ahead and track some other people that are walking and the capabilities of this camera, which are much greater than any camera I've ever used. It is just a pleasure to use this camera in low light and to also track subjects that are moving like I'm doing right now. Every subject that I'm shooting right now is tack sharp, even the buildings while I'm walking. The D4's autofocus points are just constantly adjusting. I'm shooting in 9 autofocus points, which is continuous 9-point. You don't need 51 autofocus points to track people walking or cars driving, as you pretty much can anticipate which direction they're going in. You could use the 51 autofocus points when you don't know where your subject is going. However, in that situation, I like 3D tracking, which is by far superior on the D4 than it is on any other Nikon camera. The D800E and the D7100 are both really great cameras for autofocusing ability, but the D4 is a significant step up from those two cameras. Now, the D4 also has the ability to go into crop mode. So if you sign the FN button like I did, you can go into crop mode 1.5, which effectively gives you 12 megapixels. I just turn the dial while holding the FN button, which will allow me to change that. So I'm going to take a shot in 1.5 crop mode to show you the quality of 12.1 megapixels and how it's not really that drastically less of quality than 16, but it gives you that extra reach. The 1.5 crop mode just gives you that extra reach that you may need in certain situations. And it's such a pleasure to use this camera. So I'm going to do a review video on photography rights when you're out in public, but I'm going to go over a few of those things right quick now just to let you know that if you're shooting photos or video anywhere in public where somebody is in public and their face can be seen, it's legal to take their picture and you don't need their permission to. I don't recommend getting into a fight over it. Be courteous to others if they don't want their photos taken. But if you're in the general public where it's expected that people are going to be able to see your face, then you are legally allowed to take their picture. See, with the 24-70 is a great lens, but I'm able to extend and get extra reach on certain shots that I need just by holding the FN button, and 12 megapixels is more than enough. Many people are saying that the D4 has got really soft video. I kind of disagree, as the D4's video is just as sharp as the 5D Mark II or Mark III or even the D7000. It's not quite as sharp as the D800E because it doesn't have an anti-aliasing filter, but let's take a little bit of video here and I'll show you what I'm talking about. You can do video in standard, full frame, or you can do video in crop mode, which is 1.5, or you can use the new 2.7 crop mode, which is much sharper than the 1.5 or the full frame crop. In fact, when the D4 is in 2.7 crop mode, it's actually sharper than the D800E because you're getting a pixel pitch ratio of 1:1 while you're in 1080p, which is an amazing feature to have, especially if you're using tele lenses and want long shots. Many people are complaining that the 2.7 crop mode is too long and you can't get wide shots. Well, that may be particularly true, but you can also use the Nikon 14-24 and you can get a 35 to 40 millimeter equivalent shot, which is wide enough for most circumstances. Now I'm going to take a shot in 1.5 crop mode to show you how that video is. And as you can see, the video quality is fantastic. I just love the D4. It's amazing. It's not as soft as some people say it is. We're going to go ahead and go into the menu and show you how to use the 2.7 crop. You're going to hit your menu button and you're going to go to movie settings. And right here where it says frame size, you're going to go over and you're going to be able to select all your different frame rates: 30p, 25, 24, and 1080. 720 gives you 60, 50, 30, 25. You got standard definition, which is 480i. And then here is your crop mode, which has a bracketed bar around the 1080p film strip, which lets you know you're in 2.7 crop. So I'm going to select 2.7 crop, hitting the OK button, and we're going to go back and take a video. And this is at 24 millimeter, which is the equivalent of 72 millimeters. So it effectively gives your 24 to 70 a 70 to 200 feel with tack sharp images. And as you can see, the quality of video is very, very sharp. Also, the audio quality on the D4 is amazing as well for what it is built in. Of course, I'm not using VR, so there's a little bit of a shake, but please look past that and you'll see that the image is tack sharp. Now, let's go over some of the menu features of the D4. You've got your time-lapse photography. This will allow you to set your timer to take a picture in any amount of increments you wish. 5 seconds, 2 seconds, 1 second. It'll take a photo of every duration that you've set and combine the images into a playable 1080p or 720p or even standard def movie. Basically, whatever your movie settings are, that's the settings it'll use to export your time-lapse, just like the D800 and the D600, the only 3 cameras to have this feature. Now, it also has something that no other camera has, which is quiet photography, live view. which will allow you to take photos with absolutely no shutter noise at all. It is dead silent. While using live view quiet photography, it is dead silent, but you only get standard definition quality photos. But if you need photos that are quiet, it's better to get them in standard def than to not get them at all, or to annoy somebody during a corporate shoot or something. So another couple of things in the menu is the vignette control and auto distortion control, which are much better than Photoshop or Lightroom for that matter. Make sure that your distortion control file is up to date from Nikon. You can get that at nikonusa.com. Another great feature is the HDR photos, which is high dynamic range photos. It will combine 2 exposures together, and you can change the different settings on that. You have to be in JPEG mode for that, but it'll give you such a great image, and I'm going to actually demonstrate that. You can do that pretty much by going on the quality and holding the button, turning your dial to hit JPEG, and then you scroll down into HDR. I'm going to set it to 1 single photo, and the exposure differential you can set between auto, 1, 2, or 3 EV. I'm going to go with 3. And the smoothing, well, if you set the smoothing to normal, it'll be average. If you set the smoothing to low, it'll give you such a vast HDR looking photo. And if you set to high, it'll be much more natural looking. So I'm going to go normal just for now and take 1 shot. And there we have it, my HDR image in JPEG. I'm going to switch back by holding the quality and turning my jogging wheel here, and I'll be back in RAW mode. So this camera's got many great features like I've went over. It also has, of course, aperture control while in live view. A lot of the Nikon cameras do not. I'll put a link down there in the bottom to describe what aperture and live view control really is. And this camera does do that, as well as the D800 and the D800E, which are the only 3 cameras that are currently out that do that. Now, with the D4, you just hold this button like on the D800 and the D7100, and in the D600, you can just hold this button. It allows you to change with your rear dial all your autofocus points, and on the front will let you change from auto to manual. One thing I like about the D4 is it's got the Penta Prism viewfinder like the D800E, D800, D7100. He's going. People in New York are impatient.
A great feature about the D4 that I love is the fact that the viewfinder extends away from the screen. So when I look to the viewfinder to take a picture, if I got oil or dirt on my face, I don't smush it all over the screen. I mean, heck, my D800E sometimes looks like it's going out sun tanning and got tanning oil all over it. I know it's something simple, it's really not that important, but it's a nifty little thing about the D4 that just makes it much more comfortable to shoot with.
Once again, as you can see, the continuous autofocus tracking is amazing. Now in the menu, you can go ahead and set your auto exposure lock while shooting horizontally to your little D-pad right here. And when you're in vertical, you can set auto exposure lock to your AF on. So you can also adjust your autofocus points positions through your viewfinder while moving this little D-pad while you're shooting. You just got to touch the shutter button gently to activate the autofocus points, and you can move them around, so this way you can track wherever the moving subject is in your screen, like there. Now the D4 is a phenomenal machine. You may be wondering, is it worth it? Yes, it is. Even if you have a D800 or a D7100, this camera does many, many things that no cameras around can do. And one of the greatest things about this camera is the buffer. This camera can take about 120 some odd raw photos at one time before it needs to take a break and dump the buffer. Let me demonstrate the amazing, fast, high continuous burst mode at 11 frames a second, and of course, the extremely fast buffer of the D4. This thing just continually shoots and shoots and shoots. We just took about let me see here. We just took 75 photos right there, and the buffer would have kept going. So you can see how dependable and reliable the buffer is and the speed of this camera. One of my favorite lenses, the 85mm 1.4G. I just swapped that on there. We're gonna take a few shots and walk around and see what she can do on the D4. Now the D4 is not as heavy as you would expect. It's just over 1 kilogram. It feels good in the hands. The grip is really nice. It's a very well balanced camera. That guy's gonna get a ticket going through New York City doing 50 miles an hour. But the camera feels really balanced, and it's really not that heavy. And with the 85mm 1.4G, you're only looking at about 1.5 kilograms, which is really not that much. Hot dog stand, get your hot dogs. Parking garages everywhere in Manhattan. That's one thing, if you come to Manhattan, don't expect to park anywhere. Everything is stacked up in the sky. Look at these two guys trying to get a hot dog stand off the sidewalk. How many vendors does it take to push a hot dog stand off the sidewalk? In this circumstance, more than 2. Homeless guy. That guy doesn't have a care in the world. The D4 is just a pleasure to shoot with in every way possible. If you're thinking about getting the ultimate low light camera, fast tracking capabilities, rugged magnesium alloy body, clean HDMI out, all the features and bells and whistles you'd expect, it's worth every penny. I'm going to put a link down there in the bottom of the information box so you guys can, if you want to purchase this camera, you'll be able to. I'm surprised. Usually we have homeless guys follow us around and try to give us directions, like as if we're tourists or something. That doesn't happen today.
So let's see how the D4 does in a low light scenario test. We're going to run the ISO from 400 all the way through to 204,000. And as you can see, anything below 1600 ISO is a waste to even discuss because there's zero noise. The D4 is truly marvelous, and as you can see at ISO 3200, the image is spot on and crystal clear. There is no noise whatsoever. Even at ISO 6400, there is zero noise in this image. And at ISO 12800, it's astonishing how this image is cleaner than an OCD person's hands. At ISO 25600, the noise is starting to creep into the midtones, but it's mind-blowing to see the quality at that ISO. Even at 51,200, your image is still 100% usable. It's only at 102,000 that the image starts to fall apart. And at ISO 204,000, it looks like somebody took this photo with an iPhone 2. But hey, nothing's perfect. Now, let's have some fun. Let's see how the D4 stacks up against the D800E and the D7100. I have done a review on the D7100 recently, and it is the best crop sensor camera ever made of any brand, and its low light performance is astonishing for a crop sensor camera. However, it will trail the D800E all the way through the results, and even though the D800E has 36 megapixels, because it's full frame, it's much better in low light conditions. And as you can see at ISO 3200, all images look very good. However, the D4 is still the cleanest. At ISO 6400, the 7100 and the D800E are doing a very good job, but the D4 is much cleaner. At ISO 12800, the 7100 is starting to fall apart and the D800E is having a hard time. The D4, no problem. Moving on to 25,600, and this truly shows why the D4 is the king of low light. The D4 is an amazing piece of photography equipment. It's the camera that photographers have been dreaming about for decades. Its 16 megapixel sensor is overlooked by most consumers and prosumers due to the megapixel wars. However, there's more to a great camera than just image resolution. The D4 provides robust features, a shutter of 400,000 rated actuations, fast autofocus tracking capabilities, outstanding low light performance, and a camera that can focus at f8 in near pitch black situations. It's reliable and dependable. And I mean, let's face it, this camera delivers the goods. Even for low light situations where you can't see the buttons on your camera, the D4 is the only DSLR on the market that all its buttons light up, so even in near pitch black situations, you can see your settings. The D4 is truly a magnificent professional camera that delivers all the goods and redefines the expectations of what a professional camera should be. The D4 truly proves that there's more to a professional camera than megapixels.
So guys, the D4 is an amazing machine. It's going to do everything you want and then more. It's amazing in low light, fast shooting, good features, ruggedly built, tough, and reliable. And that's what you're paying for with a professional DSLR like the D4. I definitely recommend grabbing it if you're a professional photographer and your budget will allow you to grab this camera. I definitely recommend it. Other than high resolution and high prints, which would be the D800E, so this is the greatest DSLR ever made for full frame, and I definitely recommend it. So I hope this review has been helpful for you guys, the D4 full review. If you want to buy any of the gear that I review, including the D4, please do so in the information box below. I'm going to leave the links there for you. Please use those links to support my review and my channel. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'm Corey with Famous Media. Happy shooting.